Legends were born that day. And while this threat was ended, the legends would continue. In the years to come, new threats would arise in Tyria. New creatures would stir. New sacrifices would be made. And the greatest threat of all was yet to come. A threat that would consume the entire world and call upon the greatest of heroes, the children of the legends.
Guild Wars 2, at a time of great turmoil. A lot has happened in the last years of this game. Killing elder dragons, fighting gods, and probably more to follow. It might be a good idea to look back and see what history can teach us. We better not forget our past, but learn from it. So let's go all the way back. The world of Tyria, possibly one of many others. There is no clear indication how or when the world was formed. Within all the cultures' recorded history, we see different interpretations. The one thing we know for certain is that great destruction is a part of this world's cycle. The earliest records start our journey around 12,000 years ago, before any of the great races we know today set foot on Tyria. In those days, the world might have looked totally different. It was filled with magic that streamed wildly through the planet, creating all kinds of different life forms, where now only fragments of their existence remains. We do know that amongst them there must have been multiple giant races, a feature that must have been more common. Even so, the only one we can really study now is Giganticus Lupicus, as one of their people still remains as an undead in ore. Now just more some kind of a testimony to the suffering, instead of a representation of the once proud race they must have been. But this was just one of the many races destined to go extinct. And so it happened. The rise of the Elder Dragons, creatures who would absorb all magic in the world, bringing terrible destruction with them, and so erasing all the life. A cycle that seemed to repeat itself, resetting the planet. Before the scales broke loose, there was a group that imagined there was a way out. A few races banded together in search of a way to protect themselves from the dragons. The advanced use of magic would prove useful and gave them hope. These were the dwarves, the Forgotten, Jotun, Mursat, and the Seers. At the end of the world they stood ready to face the dragons, but this plan backfired, as one race would betray them. Maybe afraid, or planning this out all along, they ran away. The Mursat would leave Tyria and vanish into the mist, another plane of existence, where great spirits and legends would reside, hereby trapping the four other races to fight in a doomed battle. Most certain of their destruction, the races accepted their fate and prepared themselves for this. But something unexpected happened. The champion dragon Glint of the Elder Dragon Krakatorik chose to help these dying races, betraying her master. After the Forgotten cleansed the dragon from her master's corruption, she could no longer accept the suffering of the mortal races. Glint protected them, but only a few survived, and with most of their knowledge, magic and society gone, they had to restart in this new world, rebuilding it from the ground up. Most of them fell into oblivion, a faded shadow of what they once were, while others, such as the Seers, were hunted down by the Mursat, who acted from the shadows, for a reason that would only surface much later. And so, almost 10,000 years passed by, and magic came back into the world. Nature reformed, and new creatures would be born. Besides this wild explosion of biodiversity, there was another strange event that took place. A new race appeared out of nowhere. These were the humans, who came into the world thanks to the help of mysterious gods, or at least that's what the legends have been telling us. Seemingly as they were transported from someplace else, a lot of questions still remained unanswered for humanity. In the coming years, the first new cities and civilizations would form, as humans claimed great stretches of land for their own, and driving out anyone who opposed them. There were also still a group of forgotten, the one race trying to keep balance into the world. They saw their violent nature and decided to leave the continent of Kryta, building a new home in the Crystal Desert, the place where Glint would reside, where they would study her teachings. Back in those days, it's said that even the desert had a blooming culture, but this place was not marked as anybody's domain. The humans were present for almost 200 years now, and in this short time span, they drove out the Char in Escalon, conquering great stretches of land in central Kryta, and building a beautiful city, Ara, where the gods would reside in Or. Here, under the guidance of the gods, magic was sealed away, but the god of water and knowledge, Abaddon, decided to release this to the humans, with the most powerful magic as a gift to the Marganites, who were his most loyal followers. What purpose he had was unclear. Was it to prepare the humans for the rise of the Elder Dragons, or simply to become the most powerful god? We might never know, but he did pay greatly for his decision later down the line. Now humans had a taste of this new power. The stable kingdoms of Kryta fell into civil war, until the great human king Doric took his pilgrimage to Ara to make a deal with the gods and seal the strong magic away. Locked away by Doric's own blood, the gods placed this magic inside 5 mysterious crystals, fittingly named the Bloodstones. The stones were tossed in a volcano on the Fire Island chain, and Abaddon was cast into the realm of torment by the other gods to stop his rise to power, and all mention of him was erased from history. On this point, the 5 remaining gods left the world, vanishing, never to be seen again. This was called the Exodus, and the start of a new time period. Year 0 starts. The next 100 years was a golden age for humanity. Besides the odd conflict here and there, the great nations were stable and peaceful. The 3 kingdoms of Escalon, Or and Kryta could expand to reach the height of their civilization. They formed guilds as a way to conduct politics and trading, and this worked out, at least in the beginning, but they clearly had different beliefs on social concerns, religion and magic. At a certain point, these guilds were the group holding the most power in human society, and they were always on the edge of a new great war. But then another event took place that ignited this spark. The volcano on the Fire Island chain erupted and spread the bloodstones across the land. This placed some of its magic back into the hands of the humans, who with it started the Guild Wars. A battle that would seemingly go on for a very long time, as all sides had equal power footing. But this came to an end when a new big threat emerged. They clearly forgot about an old enemy they once made, because humans aren't the only violent race. Before humans were here, there was another conflict going on. The Char had the strongest presence on the land and conducted battles with the Forgotten until humans drove them away into the northeast of Escalon. Some might have forgotten all about them, as they were kept at bay behind the great Escalonian wall. This changed as the Char were preparing themselves to take back everything the humans now had. They had their hands on a cauldron, a magical artifact passed along from their new gods, the Titans. The incredible power of this artifact was never seen before. The sky turned dark and the land red as blood. The wall would be scattered and the event of the Searing would take place, empowering the Char. They drove out many Escalonian troops and killing all families they passed on their warpath. Escalon was in ruins and fell, so the Char moved on east looking to conquer Kryta and Or. The two nations saw this great threat and went out looking for protection. One man, exiled from his community in Kryta, was wandering through the wilds, as he eventually ended up on the coastline by the Isles of Jantir, and saw what seemed like an illusion, floating golden creatures who used magic he had never seen before. These were the Mursat, who finally returned to the world, claiming their place as new gods. They would be worshipped under the command of the White Mantle, and use the Bloodstones to empower themselves. And they were not the only ones who used this dire situation to their advantage. In Or, there was another bloody campaign going on. The Char were slashing through Orion forces, as the kings of Or were unable to defend themselves from these invaders. One man took matters into his own hands. This was Vizier Gilbrand, who was searching through the godly artifacts for protection. As he stumbled across a forbidden scroll hidden deep in the catacombs below Ara, the tool left behind by Abaddon that corrupted the man to the core. He spoke the words on the text and plummeted the entire nation into the sea, removing them from the map, only leaving a few islands on the north, called the Sea of Sorrows, behind. This was a huge blowback for the Char, ending their invasion, but at what cost? As all of this seemed to be planned out by Abaddon, even starting from the Char and their war. The next years would mark the journey we take in the first game, starting off as a citizen in Ascalon, leaving the fallen city behind, and leaving with Prince Rurik, crossing the Shiver Peak Mountains with a group of refugees, trying to build a new life in Kryta. Rurik sacrificing his own life to keep us safe. But even reaching Kryta was only the start. White Mantle and Mursat took control of the place, and started to gruesomely murder people as an offering to power the Bloodstones and the Mursat to protect their existence, as well as the return of Vizier Gilbrand as an undead lich, serving his master Abaddon even in death. As we looked for answers, we find the Flameseeker prophecies, foreseen by Glint, predictions concerning the future of Kryta and survival of the human race, and the destruction of the Mursat by opening the doors to Kormali. After a long battle, this threat was ended, but trouble is always brewing somewhere, such as heroes that would fight over the Great Jade Sea, fighting against Shiro, who cursed the lands and had to be stopped with the help of the envoys, followed by the return of Abaddon out of the realm of torment in the desert kingdom of Elona. Two great campaigns where heroes gave up everything to stop them. And even after all this, the greatest threat was yet to come. The same destruction that we had seen a very long time ago, burling up from deep below the surface. No nation knew what this danger meant. They only saw creatures awaken from deep below. They called them the Destroyers, as they were literally breaking down the lands. We went out looking for help, and met the dwarf Odrin, and one of the new races, an Azura named Vek. We set out on a path, looking to mobilize the different races, to fight this new enemy together. We meet many heroes, whose tales would be remembered for generations to come. To end the Destroyers, we went deep underground, to the lair of their champion. But this was a battle that would not be won without a great sacrifice. The dwarves underwent a transformation to battle these monsters, but this meant the end of their existence as we knew it. After these destroyers were gone, there was finally some breathing room. It was time for political matters. Most of the races would come to an understanding with each other. The Char society would reform, driving out the Flame Legion, and with them the beliefs of the false gods. And so eventually they took back their homeland Ascalon in the next 10 years. But Adalbern, father of Prince Rurik, who stayed behind, would not surrender his kingdom. In his rage, he used his Orion sword Magdir to cast a foe fire, cursing the lands, and all his warriors to keep on fighting as mad ghosts. Kryta was stable, as the people rallied behind Queen Salma, a descendant of King Doric, and with her and the help of the Shining Blade, they drove out the last of the White Mantle and killed off the murderous race known as the Mersat, with the exception of Lazarus, who bound his soul to different items so he could keep on living in hiding. They left Lion's Arch and built another great kingdom called Divinity's Reach. The Azuras, driven out from the depths, began to adapt to life on the surface. They built a big city with their great intellect and use of magic, and the processes such as the eternal alchemy. We also had the Norn, whose origin was more or less unknown. Although they have a human appearance, it's possible they took this look later on, as transforming is in their nature. It's told that they are descendants from the Kodan, and just as they did, they would travel around in nomadic tribes, living for the hunt and proving their strength in battle. And at last, we have one more race that has yet to be awoken, as the strange causality of events took place. A human Ronin, member of the Shining Blades, wandered into a cave and found a mysterious seed filled with magic. On his way back home, he stumbled upon a most gruesome scene, as his entire family and village was murdered by a group of Mersat. He left the town and swore to lay down his weapons, as he blamed himself for the destruction caused by his enemies. He roamed around and eventually stranded on the Tarnished Coast, where he would meet a centaur, Ventari. Although centaurs, violent in nature, this one seemed to have aligned his goals with his, striving for peace and balance. He buried the seed on that spot, together with Ventari's tablet, his guidebook of morals. And there, the pale tree would grow, and spring forth a new race, the Sylvari. While deep inside, they were minions of an evil elder dragon Mordremoth. Unlike the destroyers, they had control over their own mind, thanks to their seed keepers, striving for good, and each having their own dreams to fulfill. The secret they were minions was hidden from them, but would one day emerge. But peace was scattered once more, because the destroyers were only the messengers of the world's end, and the elder dragons would rise again, as Primordius being the first to show activity, collapsing all the tunnels in the depths, causing earthquakes and claiming the undergrounds. The elder dragon Jormak was next, driving out the Norn, Quagan and Kodan from the far north, together with his champion Dragar, causing corruption even years before his awakening. And then it was Zaitan, rising from beneath ore and pulling the sunken nation back to the surface, causing tidal waves and flooding all the shores, while creating an undead army of all the dead bodies left behind. There were also stories of a mysterious deep-sea dragon, covered in mystery. There was also Kraukotoric, who awoke in the Char Blood Legion homelands, causing corruption, called a brand, as he moved through the air, flying to the Crystal Desert to kill his betraying champion Glint, destroying the last hope for the living races. But Glint didn't leave us all alone. She left 2 children who might guide us in the future. And at last there was Mordremoth, who was awoken by one of his Sylvari who saw through the dream of the Pale Tree. She started a great battle in Lion's Arch to activate a powerful magic source for her master. She wished for all Sylvari to return to Mordremoth's side. Even through all this destruction, the people still alive keep their hope. They have a will to survive and overcome anything that is in their way. New legends will stand up, trying to create a better tomorrow, all the way to the future of Kryta.
Fear not this night, you will not go astray. Though shadows fall, still the stars find their way. Awaken from a quiet sleep, hear the whispering of the wind. Awaken as the silence grows in a solitude of the night. Darkness spreads throughout the land, and your weary eyes open silently. Sunsets have forsaken all.